Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the European Herpeto-Culture. Okay. What the fuck?
Take two.
Rewind.
The intro is the most awkward part.
Oh man, okay. It's the first time I'm doing it, you have to know. All right. Um, Welcome everybody. I'm happy to announce another session of the European Herpetoculture Podcast. Today with a very special guest from France. Also, our first female guest ever. It's Sarah, also known as Sarah Suchus from Instagram. We are very happy to have you in the podcast today. So, Sarah, if you can just give us a quick introduction about who you are and what you do inside of the hobby, that would be super nice.
Okay, so hello everyone. So thanks for having me first, because that's my first podcast, and I'm your first female in the podcast. So good exchange. Uh, so my reptile backstory would be that I started being around reptiles like 15 years ago, something like that. And then I decided to become a zookeeper. That was 6 years ago. I kind of naturally directed myself into being a reptile zookeeper, but I've also been working with some of wild species like mammals and birds. And now after this, now I'm changing directions again, and I'm actually on a course to get a professional title to become I don't know how I would say that in English, but like a trainer, like a teacher, adult teacher, because my plan in the future is to give courses about reptile maintenance, especially in zoological parks, and especially about maybe not the husbandry, because there's many things about this already, like YouTube videos or like good classes and things like that, but more specifically on the security point of view and also on the welfare point of view, as I've been kind of specialized, like I have very high interest in medical training. I've been doing this with crocodilians for a while. So that's about like the professional part. And as a leisure part, so I'm very invested in crocodile conservation and research, as it's been 3 years now, yeah, already 3 years, that I am part of the organizing team with two other friends for the European Crocodile Networking meeting. So
Okay.
do I have to explain what it is?
Maybe later on, okay.
Yeah? Okay, so that's the thing.
So we are talking to a professional today.
Apparently, I don't know.
Man. Yeah, okay. I have to say I'm a full-time hobbyist. Yeah, just spending a lot of time in the hobby, but for the moment it's just a hobby at the end of the day. Stefan, you are also doing this for your job, kind of teaching people how to deal with animals. So maybe that's a kind of a common ground that you have. Sarah, you come from the background of the zookeeping. Yeah, so what's
Yes.
super interesting to me is like the story, like the development of being interested in animals, then being mostly focused on reptiles, and then making a decision to become like a zookeeper doing it professionally. So maybe if you can give us just a little background story of how you got started, like from the first steps into the hobby until the moment when you realized that you want to take it more seriously.
All right. That's a long story though. So the way I started first realizing about like how reptiles were important to me is actually pretty random. Like I have no clue how it happened in my life
Mm-hmm.
because my family has no particular interest in animals, like just random, dogs and cats.
Okay.
And and then I had to do an internship, and I was like 14. And I don't know where that idea came from. And I was like, there's actually a massive breeding center, like reptile breeding center, like 10 minutes away from my house, which you might know. It's called Reptilis.
Heard of it.
So I did an internship with them when I was pretty young, and that's how I realized that like I couldn't do anything else with my life. Like I had to keep doing reptile stuff. So from all those cool years afterwards, I had no reptiles. I've not kept any reptiles. I just tried to get as close as I could to reptiles with like all the reptile shows or meeting friends in zoos, going on forums like Facebook groups and things like that. But I didn't have that hands-on stuff. It was always just pure theory, but I had to read, like I've been reading so many books and stuff like that. And then I was so bad at school that I couldn't do any kind of like biology, sorry, class or anything, because in France, I don't know if that's the same, but in other countries, but like you can't go into scientific matters if you don't have good notes, and that was bad. So I decided to go to make tourism studies. I have a tourism diploma, but I was always having this target of like, okay, like tourism, like I was trying to find the tiniest links I could, so I could get skills and at the same time protect myself, in case that wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was 20, and then luckiest time of my life, Reptilis remembers me from 6 years ago, and they called me to offer me a job. So I was like, holy shit.
Man, just out of the blue, just out of nowhere.
Like they were looking for someone like maybe 6 months ago while I was still in school, and I was like, okay, I will try, but I was not really confident because like I was in school. And then for the summer, 6 months later, they remembered, and then they were like, okay, would you like to come? And also that's good because I wish to expand and I need an English speaker. So I was like, okay, I'm your women.
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
So that's how you got really into it. Interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that stood out to me when you told us about your story is the fact that you did not keep any reptiles yourself, like at home, because I feel like everybody who was on the podcast so far was a private keeper,
I did keep
especially
some
pretty
animals
early on.
very late.
Sorry, again.
Oh, sorry. I said I did keep some animals for friends, but I have a huge fear of commitment. And like I would never like if I have an animal, I want it until it dies. And like I am always very like I'm moving all the time. I moved country, like I have these loads of journeys even for like work. And also in my interest when working in reptile industry, if I could call it like this, for like the breeding centers and things like that. I realized everything I wanted, but also everything I did not wanted. And I was like, I will never allow myself to have an animal if I can't provide the most perfect thing. Like, there was no way. And my very first animal that I bought myself was an alligator snapping turtle.
Nice. That's an interesting animal to start with.
Just a question in between. Is the audio only bad on my side?
I wanted to ask the same question. Maybe you're blocking the microphone on your laptop. I'm not actually sure.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, no, it's really better. Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes you can put stuff in front of the microphone and then it's not perfect anymore.
I'll hold it like this.
But an alligator snapping turtle?
Yes. So
what the fuck, yo? And is it still
It's a
around?
cool animal. I totally get it. They are amazing.
So the thing is, like, I got it. Oh God. So I wasn't in France because that's illegal in France, and that has always been my dream species. And like at that moment of my life, I felt like I could financially be okay. I did plans, like I was planning to really live for a very long time in Ireland, which is legal here. So yeah, I bought him and I was just like, that was my son, like literally.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I had to leave the country, so he is with one of my friends now. But like I still have some news.
So you're still kind of in touch with him.
Yeah, but like I would have never imagined how broken-hearted I was when I had to leave. So it was pretty hard.
And does that make you feel scared of getting another animal for yourself? Are you in any way like looking for a solution to have an animal at your place, or are you just fine with your
Yeah.
professional work and it's okay for you?
I might in the future get some animals if I also need them for my professional life. Like, for example, if I need some snakes to take with me for classes and things like that. Though I've seen so many things in zoos, and I've been so used to work with animals in bigger habitats than the usual.
Yeah.
Not big enough still, but like, yeah, it would be very, very hard for me to keep reptiles. It's just too high standards.
That I can understand. If you constantly see these huge setups and then you come home in your 120, 60, 60 setup for
Yeah, and
whatever animal.
imagine is that reptile keeping in France in zoos is nothing compared to Germany or Switzerland. And I still think I still compare to French standards, but like I know if I was used to zoos in other countries, I would be like I would never have like a lizard or no,
The
like
thing
no
is,
way.
especially the animals that you are interested in, imagine keeping a false gharial at home. I mean, you cannot really satisfy this one.
No.
Yeah, okay, interesting. But to be honest about the standards of the zoos, what's your opinion about it, Stefan? Do you really think there's such a big gap from France to Germany or Switzerland or whatever? Because I mean, you're the one visiting the most zoos, I guess.
Yeah, but I'll be honest, I haven't seen enough French zoos, only the Paris zoo, so I can't be the judge of that. I like the German and Swiss setups, what I've seen, that's for sure. But I can't say it about France. I want to do a trip at the beginning of November actually in France, so we'll see.
You have
Mm-hmm.
to let me know.
I will. That will be cool. Yeah, for sure.
But like, there's no many interesting reptile collection
Hmm.
in France. Like clockwise, yes, but like one, two zoos. But the other ones are like more like general zoos that have a reptile part, but because they need a reptile part.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's not very
Mm-hmm.
diverse.
I mean, I have been to Biotropica. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I have to say I felt like it was a great zoo. Yeah, I mean it's this huge greenhouse. Of course, the individual setups are not always that amazing, but one thing that stood out to me very much, it's the Indian gharials with the slender loris, man. That was a fucking amazing setup.
yeah.
And yeah, I would say you're doing an amazing job. Also the Koendu above the giant piranha aquarium. I mean, what do you want
This
more?
is good. Yeah, it's really good. But these are pretty recent, so yeah, they are thinking like these type of habitats are thought for the animal, but for the public as well,
Hmm.
and for the zookeepers. But
Nice.
sometimes it's not, and it's like pretty messy. Now though, like I've been there recently, and I think like now the gharials tend to grow up pretty quickly,
Ah,
so
okay, okay. Yeah, so
it
you have
has
to figure out what to do with them next.
yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, but very good habitat. Like I use those pictures like to show like good stuff when I need to make like comparisons. I was like, this is good.
Okay. So now you're talking about your teaching, the teaching side of what you're doing when you want to show good habitats and stuff. In what circumstances do you show materials like that? Are you actively teaching, giving lessons for the moment?
I've been doing small lessons a while ago for like on some teaching platforms for like people who want to have a bit of theory before applying to zookeeping schools. So if, for example, they want to be a bit more familiar with reptiles or with like habitats thinking and things like that, that's in those situations that I was intervening. Now, since like I'm still learning to be a teacher, I stopped doing any of those things as I really want to get my professional diploma first. Because now that when I'm looking back at what I did, like the knowledge is like here, but like the way of teaching is not very intuitive.
Maybe I don't want to totally cut off this conversation because I'm very curious about the rest. But I'm also, before we lose it completely, still curious how you got from the internship at Reptilis to the zoo. Also because, as Ben said, I'm a teacher, animal management teacher, and a lot of students are interested in a career as yours. So I think it will be for the listener, but also maybe silently for my students, you know, want to give them something too. Interesting to hear your story, like how that went.
So it's going to change in so many directions because
that's wonderful. That's how life is. Yeah.
Like I say one very short sentence and then I explain to you, but mostly all of it is thanks to the Croc network. All of it. So I will tell the story later. But so I started with the breeding centers, but like I knew it wouldn't, you know, like it wouldn't be. I didn't like, you know, the rack systems and things like that, and I've always had high interest in more dangerous species also, which you don't find in breeding centers. As like in France, you sell a lot of like corn snakes and royal pythons and, you know, the usual. So like I always felt like I wanted more, but
can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
The animals that you are specifically interested in, give me some species names.
No species, because I am so indecisive, but crocs are like
okay.
Snake wise, I've always loved pythons and boas, especially South American and South Asian ones.
Cool.
And yeah, and big turtles. But the nasty ones, you know, the ones that bite.
All right. So we are not speaking about tortoises because there's a difference, as I learned.
Yeah.
I always say turtles for all of the shelled animals, you know, but I have learned tortoises are on the land. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, interesting.
Now I don't remember what we were talking about.
Your pathway to the zoo career.
So yeah, like I did this, like I've been working for Reptilis for a few months, and after this I was unemployed, and I was like, there's no way, like now that I've started, like I need to continue. I was like already 21. No, I was 21, which was for me too hard to go back to like a zookeeping school, because like I was already financially independent and active, and like I needed this in my life. There was no way I would go back to school, so I chose to like a distance learning, like zookeeper distance learning, which allowed me to have unlimited internships. So for 3 years, I could have as many internships I wanted, and I had the classes like books. The books were shit, full of mistakes. They were putting wrong crocodile's name under the pictures, and I was like,
impossible.
But it allowed me to have to do internships. And I always say to people asking me like how to become a zookeeper, when you are more reptile specific, like more about reptiles, you could get hands-on experience with them before than in the zoo. Like you could work in animal shops, you could work in breeding centers. Like there's so many ways to meet reptiles.
Animal shelters, maybe?
Yeah, also. But like if someone wants to work with like big cats or monkeys in France, there's no other way than working in zoos, which makes it a bit harder for them to have experience to get on the train, you know. And then after that, it's all about like, so either you do actual school or like distance learning. But honestly, even if I wasn't doing the distance learning, just the internships, that was enough. And then a lot of connections, and that's how the Croc network just helped.
One thing
So
that
yeah.
one thing that I'm very interested in, because at the moment I'm also at a point in my life where I'm not exactly sure how to continue with my career. So I would like to ask you the question that, like, you were offered a job at the Reptilis, kind of out of nowhere. Before that, you were in like the tourism sector, and I would like to know if it was a very easy, quick, and intuitive decision for you to make to go down that path into the animal keeping, or was it like
Um,
debating with yourself about making a better money somewhere else and spending the money in my hobby, or yeah, for sure I'm gonna go that way, or was how did that feel like for you?
so I just had my tourism diploma. So after the tourism diploma, I had nothing planned because there were two choices for me. Either I was continuing studies, but I had no interest in doing so. Either I didn't know what to do with my life, like I had no clue. And it
Hmm.
just appeared. So for at this moment of my life, like I've been very lucky. That's
Felt like
just
a
luck.
blessing.
So I
Oh,
didn't think
okay.
about anything.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think it just shows that the same happened to some other guests we had, that if you're like just open to new opportunities and you're enthusiastic and passionate about it, people will see that, and then often it just keeps
Yeah.
rolling and you just find it, it seems to find you almost.
It's a passion flow. You
Yeah.
go with the flow, but it's like your passion leads you.
Yeah.
Can I tell you about my situation? So I terminated my the contract with my solar company. So I'm unemployed for the moment. I'm working on building my own stuff, whatever that can be. Hopefully some building some random installations, but also building a solar company, so it can go those ways. But just yesterday, there was offered a job, a mini job at a zoo really close by, Zoo Karlsruhe, for building whatever, painting some houses, constructing in the animal enclosures, repairing some stuff or whatever for the guests and so on. But
Do
it
it.
will be paid like on the minimum wage, and it will
Yeah.
only be a couple hours per month. But I feel like, man, I should do it. That's how I feel like.
It's like long term or just like small contract.
Have a limited time, but after, I feel like I'm gonna qualify. If I start, I will qualify for long term. But
Yeah.
I'm not not so sure. But yeah, my heart tells me to do it.
But like you don't have to lose. Like you're not losing anything. Like even if like you could say yes because like that's animal stuff and like that's what you like to do, like build things for the animals and things like that. And even if you don't like it, you can still do the solo company later on or
Yeah,
both.
yeah. Yeah, it's just I'm just a little bit worried about losing the focus. But
Yeah.
Do
but
it.
okay. I
I
already
like I get you. I get you because it's hard sometimes to let the things go, but at the same time when you have like a new opportunity, you just like like you would feel bad to say no, but
Yeah, to be
yeah.
honest, the last big decisions that I've taken in my life, they were, looking back, they were always kind of the right ones. But in the moment of taking the big decisions, I kind of most of the time felt a little bit unsure.
Yeah.
So, Stefan, with a little bit more of life experience, looking back on your life, taking big decisions, would you say, like, if you feel like it's the right thing, just do it?
Yes. Once a coach of mine told me a very nice metaphor, and that's something I sometimes use for other people. But where you are now, you gotta envision yourself like there's this river, and you're on like how do you call where you step on a boat?
I don't know.
Like on this wooden
Harbor.
deck, you're on
Yeah.
this wooden deck, and next to you is a canoe. And the wooden deck is stable and safe, and you know what's going on, and and but the canoe is gonna take you where you need to go. But to get
Mm.
in that canoe, the first foot when you step in, it's like.
That's like a challenge.
But as soon as you get into the goddamn canoe, everything is stable and you can move on.
And you're not
Yeah.
gonna go back, probably.
I had the same
All right.
feeling like a few months ago when I kind of officially decided I was done with my like zookeeping career. It was so hard for me, like so hard. But at the same time, I was like what? Like when you know when it's right, you know, like you go in it, you take the decision, and then you will have everything going on in your life telling you that you took the right decision.
All right. Can you also compare this to like choosing the animals that you would like to work with? Because you already told us like you work with mammals, with birds, and also with reptiles, but you strongly took the decision to go for the reptiles. Is that also something that you just felt like was the right thing and you did it and it turned out to be right?
Um,
Or how did you feel like this passion was the right thing for you? Because I'm not very easy to decide
I don't
about
know.
that, you know.
It just feels so natural, and I see the joy that it gives me.
So
Like
There
in
goes the
every,
microphone.
like in every. Oh,
Sarah?
sorry. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's
Oh
better.
God, I need to
Wunderbar.
hold it properly. I don't have anything stable.
Sorry.
Okay. No, my fault. Okay, I have to not do it again. So, yeah, I was saying like it's just like you can feel when it makes you happy, but like in every aspect of your life, not just when you're doing it, you know? Like this conversation is turning so philosophical.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Philosophical. Yeah.
I keep saying wunderbar, but what's the French word for like great?
Incroyable. Incroyable. That's what I learned.
Incroyable? Is that like
Incredible?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, incroyable. But
Okay.
yeah, we don't say it that much.
No, that's a shame.
Cool.
So you said that you basically just being passionate and the network got you to where you are now.
Yeah.
And now you've decided to become a teacher. So what was the reason for you to step away from the zoo, if I might ask?
So the contract I had was a 1.5 year contract. I loved it, but that's also when I realized that it's not all about passion, because I was way too invested in my job, that I was making my life all about it. I was almost losing my identity over this job, because like every time I was things were going on at work, like my whole day was like fucked up, like I was going on, like I was not existing anymore, like I was just like a robot, a zookeeper. Some other things after that just went wrong, and I wasn't okay. It has deeply affected me. Even 6 months after, I still realized that I still have some very bad stuff about that. And yeah, I know, like, I think working with animals makes us very introspective. And sometimes the animal teaches us so many things about ourselves. And now I learned, like, working in zoos is not for me. Like, it's not for me anymore. I did it for 6 years. That's not that much. But I was like, yeah, fine. Like, after this, my contract ended. And I was like, well, I have my partner. I'm living with him. We just moved in. There's no zoos with animals that I like, because I've reached a point that like I'm not going to apply in any zoos. Like I want a zoo that respects my work ethic, which is pretty hard to find. The maintenance standards also. Like some zoos have been working like 6 years ago. I wouldn't work for them nowadays, because like we always change our minds about like maintenance and things like that. So I've made it to the point where I had like 3 zoos coming to me, offering me jobs that were like I would never probably see this kind of money in my life. But I was like, no, like there are no animals that I like. They are far away. I don't want to change my situation. So I quit working with zoos. Now I was still willing to find a way to be with animals and stuff, and that's how I figured out that teaching would be a good way, because like that's in a way, in all the zoo jobs I've had, especially in Ireland, I also did trainings, like courses and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, like I love it so much, and that's actually what was my most favorite part, working in zoos. So that's how it just turned.
Nice.
I recognize something that also Sam from Belgium said in his recording session. I was not the host, but I listened to the session, and he used to work at a zoo as well. And he kind of told us that he burned out a little bit in the zoo, right? Because he was I don't know, uh he wanted like the best for the animals, and he wanted to improve like the caretaking standards and
Yeah,
stuff. But at a certain point, you as a keeper are not
you can't.
like in the position to make decisions about changes of whatever nutrition or enrichment, and
Yeah,
you always have to apply to, I don't know, change the feeding schedule, but probably it will be declined, and or even to adjust the housing of the animals and stuff. And so sometimes you are forced in, maybe I have no personal experience, but maybe sometimes you are forced into working in a situation that you don't
yeah,
necessarily
you
appreciate.
disagree.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And then it's like
Yeah,
a fight, like with yourself kind of every day. Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's the
Interesting.
whole point.
Yeah, man. Okay.
So
So,
go
Stefan,
ahead, my dear
I I
friend.
I just wanted to know if like the teaching, is that gonna be like self-employed work, like zoo consulting? You're trying to find your own clients, which are probably zoos from your network, and then give lessons, and you're paid by the hour or something? Or is that gonna be hosted by a company, or how does that work?
So I don't know yet, because I could do both at the same time. Like honestly, it's just going to depend of the opportunities that I guess. For now, I plan to have my own like freelance, as I could also be be doing the classes for other training places. But like I don't plan to only go like in zoo. It could also like I would be very interesting in opening like sessions for like phobic, like people who scared of like snakes and stuff like that. Because like even if in France or in Europe we do have like reptiles in our countries, we're not the most like they're not the most common in Europe, but like conservation starts with education, and I think that's a big mistake to be like I just talk about crocs because that's the most thing that I know, but like if you start to if people start to think like, oh, there's no crocs here, so we don't care, but like you go on holiday, you are a consumer of all those things, and like that's the same for everything, because if you start thinking like this for crocs, you're also doing it for French wildlife. So yeah, like just a way to open people's mind. And that's also, I think, that would be very important to me. So not to just stop at like zookeeping.
So then my first question is, did you ever think about starting a YouTube channel just to get the general public interested in you as a persona? And because people who are phobic about reptiles, how are you going to meet them otherwise, you know?
Yeah. Uh, YouTube is not my thing. I'm not really like a online person. So nah, that's not into my competences.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a starting point right here.
So, and very nice way of explaining your journey, and you've also already mentioned the Euro Croc network, which was a huge part in that. I think you're still pretty involved in that,
Mhm.
and that seems also about education, I guess, or at least sharing
Yeah.
knowledge. So maybe could you tell us a bit about the
The-
Euro network,
yeah.
Euro Croc network
Yeah. So
hashtag?
the Croc network, so it's called ECNM. So we're three people, and we organize. So now it's one every 2 years. Yeah, you said 1 year out of two. We organize an event in Europe, so big meeting that gathers people who are interested in crocodiles. That's it. No matter where, like, what's your background. You can be just a random person who loves crocodiles, and you can still show up. You can be a student in biology. You can be a zookeeper, a vet. Uh, we also had people working for leather industry.
That's what I wanted to ask. How do you feel about that?
Uh, do I have to answer now, or
No,
do I
maybe
keep
later.
explaining it? Yeah.
Later. Okay.
So yeah, like it gathers so many different people, but just crocs. And like first, that's so cool because crocs are so cool. And everyone like is very nice because it's just one particular interest. And during those few days, so most of the time it takes place in one zoo in Europe. And during those times, we schedule for 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, depends of the time we have, talks. So it can be talks about like someone who has been doing research and they want to show us what they did. I did talk about like medical training, like there's loads of subjects we can talk about. It is mainly about research and conservation because most of our work is about that. And for students or researchers, we also provide a grant. Um, so we choose like the best proc-related research projects, and we give money for them to make it true, like to make it
Nice.
come to life. So yeah, that's the whole thing. So it's going to take place in July next year, so 25.
And you are open for the general public, so it is not necessary to be like a member in the Croc network.
No, the only thing is you buy your ticket. That's it.
Okay,
And
interesting.
it's very important for us to be the most accessible as we can. Here, like if you're like a student or just someone who has an interest and want to have access to information and meet professional, that's like a very because that's a very, very important value to us is to stay affordable so we can welcome anyone.
Give me some numbers. How many people attend the meeting? So how many attendances do you expect for the next meeting, and what do you charge for as a
So
fee, and how does that go?
last year was our best year because we had 110 participants.
Man,
Nice.
It was in England. Regarding the prices, I don't have them yet because we might have to change them a little bit for next year. Because now that we do it once every 2 years, we will have to change the whole organization. So I wouldn't be able to tell you, but that's then for 3 days, food is provided for the 3 days for lunch and nights. You can also have free camping because that's always like a must have. We always plan a free way to sleep if someone wants. A big half of the person go to hotels, but like when you have young students, it's like a festival, like a croc festival for them because like they go camping, we have beers, and we talk about croc conservation and things like that. So that's pretty nice. But it's like less than 80 euro for 3 days, 3 days
man,
of food, 3 nights. and super cool, interesting croc conferences.
And it sounds super great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get to meet very important people in croc conservation. Like it's been 3 years I'm organizing it, but I've been there since 2018. And like I've met people I was reading books from, like when you're like, oh, that's so cool. So yeah, like it makes like everyone so accessible and everyone is friendly. Like that's croc nerds heaven.
Oh man, that sounds so cool. Yeah. We have a group like that for the primates from a German small mammal club. There's a special interest group
Yeah.
for the primate keeping. But the thing is, it's only allowed to attend if you are a member in the club. And so usually when we have our yearly meeting, we are like, I want to say between 10 and 20 people. And I'm always thinking about how to get more people involved, but probably the right decision to take there is to make it accessible, like to just
Yeah,
open it up to
that's the
everybody,
best
invite
part.
some good speakers to draw the audience
Yeah,
in kind of. Yeah,
that's
man, 110 people, that's fucking impressive. I can imagine they come from all over Europe then.
yeah. So because it was in England, that's how we reached our peak level as uh, there's a big part of croc interested people that are from uni, like a university in England. So there we had a big majority of English British people. But yeah, like it's been 2 years now. We have people from outside Europe coming also. Like
Yes.
we had Matt Shirley, who is from the US, who is like a very important person for African crocodiles research. He discovered the new dwarf croc species. We had Alvaro, who is deeply invested in Orinoco crocodile conservation. So he comes from Venezuela every 2 years to come. So yeah, we have loads and loads of people coming from very far away now. So we are actually, yeah, we're pretty proud of it.
So people who enjoy crocs, but I heard Ben about his mammal group, and I can imagine that that's also because a lot of people who keep a lot of mammals are quite private. So that made me wonder, are like private keepers all also highly attending those meetings, or?
It's a smaller part of the public, but we do have private keepers
Nice.
coming also. They are all very welcome. The only aim that we have is to not lead our like we don't want to become like
This
a
is how you
show
keep.
where you get to exchange some address and reader. We don't want it like this because it's still mainly focused on research and conservation. Now, like private keepers, that's another subject, but are very interesting and useful and important also for conservation, reptile wise. So yeah, like it's still very important. Oh no, is it? Oh yeah, it's working.
Oh, you're doing well.
So how do you reach out to the interesting speakers that you invite? Like, is it just, do you have like a Croc Network email and just send out, or are there other people, do they know about you? Do they reach out to you, or is it just from, I know about this guy because he knows the guy that I know, or how does that work?
That's a mix of all of it. Because personally, I'm more into the ex situ aspect because from the three of us, I'm the one working with crocs in zoos. So I have more contacts in for vets and like zookeepers and other people. And my two other friends who organize, they're more like working in the field. So it's a mix. Like sometimes we reach people, sometimes we just read papers and are like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I should give him a shout out. It just depends. Like we have a long time to plan all of it. So yeah, also the people who we give money to for the grant, we want them to come to the next one so they can show us what
The
they,
results, kind of.
yeah, yeah. So that's how we kind of recruit our speaker team.
Okay, so speaking about science related to crocodiles, and you also said like you're reading papers and stuff. What is there? What does the science tell us about crocodiles? First of all, what is so amazing about crocodiles? Why are you fascinated by them so much? And what is there to learn about them? Can you give us just some, I don't know, some examples from talks that you like heard or some papers that you read, or is there just some
Um,
key infos that are interesting?
for me, they're just so one of a kind. Like there's nothing like Crocs. I mean, even if you like, oh, Komodo dragons, big monitors, they're not alike. Like they're so different. And what I really like about Crocs and what I think is so interesting is how resilient they are and how you can use a big predator to make a statement of the actual ecological situation. Like, I don't know if I made myself clear. That was
I kind of
really
understand, but I would like to ask, what is it like, the ecological situation, and what do the crocodiles tell us about it?
like it's like if you were studying sharks, that's the same thing, Like you take apex predator, and since they eat all of the ones underneath, then you get like they are the one telling everything, like most of it. The most precise example I have is about mercury in French Guiana, because
Mm.
there's a lot of illegal gold mining. So when you want to take gold, you have to pour mercury in the rivers. And then so all the animals are impacted by this. For
Mm.
crocs, you don't get to see it straight away, but they eat all the impacted animals and they are the one on the top. And then you see from the years, the
So it kind
babies are
of builds up.
smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, the babies are like smaller, less babies, more deaths. And yeah, you're like, it's very strange with reptiles and especially crocs to get to see when something is wrong, but like, it's so hard to find. Like it's not like they have diseases also. There's also diseases about pollution and things like that. But they're much harder to find.
Isn't it also that crocs are kind of resistant to cancer and stuff?
Uh, I I am not qualified enough to like get to really talk about like diseases, immunity and things like that, because I've heard so many different things that I don't really
Mm-hmm.
know. But yeah, like they tend to be fine with a big part of the bacteria and viruses. So they're like warriors.
Man, around since the dinosaurs.
Yes.
Survive the fucking dinosaurs, man. Yeah, so okay. If we talk about crocodile keeping, there's obviously this one aspect of zookeeping. We already spoke a little bit about private keeping, which I would like to get a little bit into detail also. But first, since we already opened the question, how do you feel about the use of crocodiles in meat and leather production? Because that's also a huge market, I guess, right?
It is.
Have
Like.
maybe just to add, just recently I have been like on the CITES website where you can check like the export quota or the export numbers of
Mhm.
animals and animal products, and the numbers of imported or exported crocodile skins. It's just insane.
It's crazy.
So the farms must be huge, and I'm wondering, does it help in any way stabilizing populations, or are they even hybridizing the animals over there?
So I so since I'm not doing research myself, I haven't been confronted to this kind of situation. Now I know that some brands that do like skin, like leather made stuff, are actually very active in funding the research.
Okay.
So, which is pretty interesting because some sites see it as corruption, but at the same time, even if they were not giving the money, they would still be here,
Mm.
That's that's a thing. So now in exchange, they get more information and bigger requirements for the animal maintenance there. Now we've probably seen all of the videos that are online about like the thing. That's another subject. It's just animal cruelty, but that's another subject. But yeah, like for me, the lever, I mean, every kind of animal-made product is still weird, like when it's regarding fashion, but at the same time, like for example, if you buy something in the US, you're probably helping someone to have food on its table at night, you know, because like sometimes it's like just trappers that are just making the leather and sell the meat because they were asked to take the gator out, you know, but like it's their job.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's like crocs are part of sorry are a
No.
very big part of the economy, like animal wise. So yeah, like it's a very big subject.
It's a huge subject. It's a huge,
Yeah,
especially if you put in the socio-economical aspects
yeah,
of
that's
all of
it.
that. It's insane.
But it's also very hard to take it apart, like.
Yeah.
So, and I'm working with them, and I love crocodiles, but like, I'm actually, I would say I tolerate like leather industry and meat industry because like the people who do it need it, like, and also like it's kind of like a symbiosis because these people are they want like very luxury brands, like they give money for research, but like we wouldn't do those research without them,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. And those research are showing things about like very important things, could be like health things or just conservation. Like it's too big.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I
Okay.
believe also in the farms, a lot of our hybrids because of
Yeah.
the skin and because of they grow faster. So maybe they don't directly help with conservation because you can't put those animals back,
Oh
but
yeah, no.
hopefully it takes away from the wild.
There's not a lot of like there are those type of farms who
Yeah.
make like pure leather and don't do anything else. They are the kind of ones who give money, like who farms
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
things. Now, there's also something like it's like farming. You probably heard of this. It's like, for example, some species, like American alligators. I don't know nowadays how it's like. I know it used to be like they can take all the eggs, they make the eggs artificially
Artificially?
artificially hatch, and then like I don't know, I don't remember the numbers, but let's say half of it's gone back to the wild and half of
Mm-hmm.
it is taken for food. But like it's actually like the number that they released, they wouldn't have survived like if the whole thing was there. Like would have been only 10%, you know, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a vast
Yeah.
subject.
Not sure if you can answer the question, but I ask it anyways. Like probably overall the croc population is declining. Is that true, first of all?
Yeah.
For most species, probably. So I'm wondering, is the population declining because the animals are maybe poached or hunted down? Or is it because of the circumstances of the environment? So following
It's
that, I'm wondering, does it even help putting back crocodiles in the wild, or do they not find the resources to grow back a healthy population, you know?
That's a very good question. Um, my friend, my co-organizer for the Croc network, she was doing gharial research, and so I don't have the numbers in mind, but broadly, she was showing that a certain amount of gharials had been reintroduced. A few years later, there was no increasing number, like
Mm.
no
Mm-hmm.
increase. And it happened for a few years in a row, and they were like, yeah, but like what more can we do then? Because they do
Mm-hmm.
education, they help the fishermen, like they do everything. And I was like, yeah, but now it's like it's
So
hard because we reached a point where we need to find what's like that
what is
specific
missing?
reason. Yeah.
And
So that's the whole
is it the food
thing.
supply then? Do they not find enough fish or fish of the right quality or quantity, or is it like the
It could honestly
basking spots or
it could be anything. Because like in French Guiana we've seen like mercury, like the babies are smaller and things like that, so maybe genetically they're not as good. There's some space it's about food. There's also some places where with the climate change, the temperatures are way too different, and then the sex ratio once they hatch is
uneven?
so bad.
Uh-huh.
You also have the females fighting because there's not enough laying sites. There's too many things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've heard like a statement about tiger conservation. I'm not sure if it's necessarily true, but it said that it will not help to breed and to reintroduce tigers because there's just not enough forest around anymore. So
There's
maybe
more
it's like the
tigers in zoos than in the wild.
yeah. But
So,
even the little amount of tigers in the wild is already filling up all the space that is available for them,
yeah,
kind of, because the roaming areas are so huge, the territories. So yeah, maybe it's about reforestation then or something.
that's why there's a big part of research regarding crocs because, like, it's kind of like secretive animals and like they are much more different than mammals. And yeah, like it's you can't, find the thing, and like
Mm.
they won't physically sometimes show it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, yeah, like it's also hard to breed in zoos. Also, some of them are still so enigmatic. So it's a very hard animal to work with and do conservation. But that's what makes it interesting at the same time.
Yeah.
So which one is the best crocodile species then? Is it the gharials? Is it the African small-snouted crocodile? Is it the dwarf crocodiles?
For me, it's the Malaysian false gharial, the Sunda gharial,
Oh yeah, okay. Man.
Tomistoma. They are the love of my life.
They have a lot of fans. Why?
They're so amazing.
And they are
Like they're
huge.
huge, they're massive. They're the one making the biggest eggs of all the crocs. Like
What's
the
the
eggs,
size of an egg?
uh, like average would be like this.
Okay,
I have
like a
small
good
hands.
apple.
This like tomistoma egg.
Okay.
So yeah, that's pretty big. And like the colors and the behavior is really cool.
And do they feed on fish as well, exclusively?
No,
No?
no, they eat meat also.
Oh man, okay. Yeah, they are fucking gorgeous. And I have
Yeah.
seen them like popping up in the hobby as well, right, Stefan? I think I've
Yes?
Tomistoma?
yeah, I think I've seen
How?
them even on terroristic.com.
I'm not sure on that, honestly. I've seen a lot, but I can't. I like
I
to remember those, but probably not in the. Maybe on Telegram, but not on Terroristic.
I am
That would be
sure they
pretty
have been
weird though,
offered.
because
Okay,
like,
wow.
yeah.
I'm sure they have been offered, but I'm sure they have even been offered publicly on terroristic. That's what I'm thinking for the moment.
I see the face. So maybe this is a good one because Ben was also curious about it, it seemed, a little bit earlier. You talked about private keepers joining the
Yeah.
meetings. You talked about that private keepers can maybe somehow, somewhere aid in at least maybe collecting data or whatever. Something that maybe 99% of most private keepers don't do enough. I'm one of them. Like I breed with some species not a lot of people breed with, and I just put the eggs in the incubator, and I'm glad when they hatch. That's it, honestly. So
Understatement.
sorry.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. So yeah, my question actually is a lot of private keepers maybe hope to one day help in some sort of way. So what are ways that you think that a private keeper, and you can use your example of the crocs maybe, but still can maybe aid or help in research, or not sending animals back, because we all know that's like a
No.
really romantic thought, but I'm sure there's other ways.
It's just networking and
Mm,
communicating. Like, if you are into like that kind of gecko that like a very limited people have, or that zoos have and can't breed, and that you breed them, just come to them and tell them how you did, you
mm,
know?
mm,
Like, that's how it works. And also, be as a private keeper, like, you have this chance that you monitor your animals, and you have one specific way to do the things. And like, if it works, like, say, like, talk about it. Because sometimes it's very like, there's those keepers that are like full of ego and like are bragging about reproducing species, and they don't really feel like sharing their secret, if there's a
mm.
secret. But you're like, yeah, but this species is endangered, like, just talk about it. Like, zoos sometimes are doing their best to find ways to reproduce, and they can't, and so you hear and you're bragging about it, but like what's the point then,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just communication, monitoring. So yeah, like, I have learned very good things like from private keepers, because it's such a privilege to get to see your animal 7 day a week,
Mm,
24-hour a day almost, and being the only one who cares about them with a specific way, that, like, what's good and what's bad,
yeah.
and you get to
Mm,
see like a huge panel of behaviors and settings that, as a zookeeper, in your zookeeper life, you don't.
mm,
Sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I could have stayed, like, watched my gharials eat for 20 minutes, and I'm like, no, I need to fucking feed whatever animal after that. Like, sometimes in the zookeeper life or research or whatever, like, we just don't have this time, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like the job. And if you keep it as a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
like, you have this opportunity to check so many things.
yeah. I actually hear more zookeepers say exactly the same thing, that you're almost so caught up in the day-to-day work that
Yeah,
actually like
you miss the details.
observing and noticing your animals can be. So what, I don't want to, you don't have to make it too specific, but just for like your average keeper who's keeping maybe some of these odd species, what would be like valuable data? Like last week, a vet said to me, what do the eggs weigh when they are laid? What do they weigh when they are, hatch? Stuff like that. So what would be maybe temperatures, incubating temperatures?
Yes, yeah, like this. And like, like, actually, I think, but because I'm a monitoring freak, I want to
Hmm.
monitor everything. Like,
Okay.
write the dates, count the days. If you see like one slight change of behavior, you know, but like, specifically talking about crocs, because they're so hard to read,
Hmm.
like body language and stuff, that, those small things that can tell so much more than what you think, you
Yeah.
know like, you're like, oh no, it's just just random, like, it's crashing or whatever, and then you realize this crashing is like meant to say something, and you're like, just makes sense. Why haven't I thought about it before? you know
Yeah. I
so
can imagine that writing those things down makes you more conscious of what they're actually doing. Because I do think a lot of keepers, when they have certain animals, also zookeepers, but also private keepers, that after a few weeks you see your animal and they're like acting different than they usually did. Often there's something that happened in the past that could already like tell or
yes,
explain, or
yeah,
because they are so subtle. And I can imagine with a croc, Like they're, yeah,
It's so hard.
yeah. They
And
don't
I
have
feel
any hairs that go, yeah.
I can imagine if you don't like write down the information, a year later it will just easily be forgotten, you
Yeah,
know. But if the
yeah,
same behavior occurs every autumn or whatever, maybe you can just make links if you just
Hmm.
write down and monitor everything.
yeah. So
So
that's a privilege of keeping animals' privacy.
yeah, that's for sure. It's actually interesting because we are speaking to another potential guest at the moment, and he's developing a software called Techno Breeding. And it's like a software, especially for kind of that, like monitoring all data of
Okay.
your collections. And the software is then meant to be used in private and in professional institutions. And I think, but he's gonna speak about it more like at the end of the month or so. I think he wants to then combine all data per species and then try to make links between. I don't know. It's a very interesting topic. So monitoring
Yeah,
as much data as possible. That's what
yeah.
we as private people can do. But I'm also wondering about another aspect because there are obviously people out there keeping crocodilians, probably mostly like the spectacled caiman, the Caiman crocodilurus, or the Paleosuchus palpebrosus, or maybe the Northern American alligators and stuff like that. Probably species that are not really endangered, if I could say that. So I am wondering if there is somebody out there who is thinking about start working with crocodiles and who is ready to make a commitment to take an animal home and to take care of it for decades, would you recommend those people to go for more endangered species, like, for example, I don't know, the Siamese crocodiles or Cuban crocodiles, in cooperation maybe with zoos? So the resources of the private people, like the time, space, and money that goes into the project, can be used for actually endangered species instead of not endangered ones. You know,
Um,
maybe you can receive animals on a loan, for example, instead of taking the ownership, and that way help to build a bigger population of a certain species in captivity.
so if I'm staying very broad and purely answering the question, I
Yeah.
would say yes. Like that's good. Now there's lots of different like factors. Like I think sometimes as a private, like as I said, like the fact of having full monitoring is very good for very sensitive species, like endangered species. So yes, like I think it would be very good to have those kind of things. Now I know it's very hard to get to be done regarding all the conservation status, especially like in France, it would
Hmm.
be almost impossible to do
To have
that.
the license. Okay.
Yeah.
In Germany,
And
for example, it's less of an issue.
yeah, and also there's there's the zoo point of view sometimes where they also exclude private keepers.
Hmm.
Not that it's wrong sometimes, to be honest, but yeah, like they sometimes zoos don't want to recognize that the
Hmm.
conservation also needs private keepers. Now, not every private keeper, of course. Some of them would be happy without them, but yeah, like
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
just
how do you
wondering.
find that keeper that's, you know,
Yeah, I mean, the
that would be
network.
so difficult. Yeah, networking
Yeah,
indeed.
come on. We've got the
Just to
solution right here.
you are right, dear Ben.
Yeah,
That's two females legally
it's
yeah, it won't
fucking crazy, huh?
two Tomistoma females.
Big ones.
Yeah, 3 meter and 3.5 meters
Yeah, that's
already
crazy.
depositing eggs.
Yeah, and I've
That's
already seen babies
insane.
as well. Yeah, man.
Pick them up, Sarah. Go do it. Do it.
Let's go, man. Come on, yeah, I'm sure you are ready for the commitment, Sarah. Come on.
Damn, that's insane.
I'm
Sorry for this
so like
interruption, but I just became curious. I was just
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but
uh,
so I'm then wondering like the resources of zoos are usually limited. Like mostly it's the space and also the money that is not infinite.
yeah.
And crocodiles from my imagination have like pretty large clutch sizes. So if you're breeding like an endangered species that is that maybe doesn't grow to enormous sizes. Maybe the Cuban crocodiles are maybe a good example. Is it easy for the zoos to always find good homes just in other zoo institutions? So you're already
No.
saying no. So isn't it then the logical step to reach out to the private public to say, hey, we've got this amazing species, put away your, I don't know, normal croc,
Yeah, yeah,
caiman
but
and take these,
I mean, if that's what we said before, I think that if, how can I say this? When we said like there's like reproduction and it's useless to reproduce, to breed if we didn't solve the problem in the wild. So
Mm,
why would we breed and then give them to private keepers and then do more research, but that would be research based on the animal and not on its habitat.
mhm.
Because the problem is some most like if you reach that point of being okay with breeding them, then we know, we've solved that thing, kind
Okay,
of.
okay. Yeah, okay.
So that's
And
why,
yeah, okay. And as the crocodiles also have a long life expectancy, you can maybe, if you manage to breed them, then you can separate the pair for 10 years. And if you need some more babies, then reintroduce them again and start the breeding again. That's how you're thinking
yeah,
about it, maybe. Yeah,
but
okay.
it's actually very hard also to reintroduce.
Oh,
It's so hard. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, and I know a lot of uh, um, endangered species that are okay in zoos, and we have too much, and we
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what to do with them.
yeah, yeah.
And like when you try to make like semi, like find zoos where they can have like half uh, release, like they're not fully released, but
Mm.
they're like that's the next step, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so hard to find. And weirdly, it's hard to find money for these kind of things. There's
Mm-hmm.
money to make the zoos bigger and stuff, but it's harder to find money
Mm-hmm.
to fund the reintroductions.
Yeah, I feel also like crocodiles. I spoke to I'm not gonna say his name, but somebody who has a small crocodile selection in the northern part of Germany. A lot of them come from Crocodile Zoo in Denmark too. And he also told me that a lot of zoos don't have crocs anymore, and there's simply no space for them. And
Yeah,
if they do, they have the Nile because it's big and impressive and can go next to the hippos, something like that. So yeah, I can imagine, as Ben said, with animals that are so long lived, and if their funds are not there, it's really hard to
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
keep enough.
That's uh that's yeah, that's like a big subject because they're hard to work with.
Mm,
What is hard is actually it's not like to work with because that's the tricky part is that oh you just feed it once a week, and like you just take care of the filters and the temperature. But that's everything to not do. Like there's so many other stuff to I wish I could have done as a zookeeper, but I'm not given the time and the importance to do those things. And yeah, there's this image of, you have crops that's easy to take care of, but yeah, like it's hard to it's big installation. And also that's another subject, but it's very hard to not fall into sensationalism
mm.
part when you keep crocs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. Like we see in the United States, like the crocodile, the alligator farms, alligator parks and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also think that's why some zoos refuse to have like crocs or communicate a lot about it because they don't want to be seen as these
Mm-hmm.
type of places.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I've been to a private zoo in Switzerland. It's the Walter Zoo, and I went there for giving a talk, actually. So also something that you are interested in, like the this topic of zoo consulting, teaching the keepers a bit about whatever. I'm sure you could do that very well as well. And the Walter Zoo, they are keeping like the American alligators as well as the dwarf crocodiles, and the American alligators, they are keeping them outside most of the year. They have access to an indoor enclosure, but
That's
they're
great.
most of the time like outside. And I asked them for how long they stay outside, and I'm thinking it was like until October or something. I mean, it's Switzerland, probably a little bit warmer than here, more warm than here, but I can imagine like the alligators, especially maybe the Chinese alligators in the south of France, maybe can you keep them outdoors like all year round?
Yeah, most of it, yes, but sometimes it's not warm enough. So
Mm.
I've talked with who was I think it was René from Crocodile Zoo in Denmark, who
Mm-hmm.
was giving me the good temperatures for like Chinese alligator breedings, and it's actually so hot.
Hot.
Like, yeah, like like when it's hot, it's like really hot. I think it was like 33, 35, maybe even more. Uh,
To trigger
almost
the breeding or for incubation?
for breeding.
Okay, okay.
And so everyone, when you don't think about this, you're like, oh, Chinese alligator outside. Of course, they hibernate, like they
Mm-hmm,
can
mm-hmm,
stay in
mm-hmm.
freezing water. They love to dig, sometimes 3 meters. They can just dig super long tunnels and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
cold is fine. But it's not warm enough. Well,
Okay,
maybe in a
okay.
few years, unfortunately. But, like, so yes, like they can definitely be kept outside. Now, hoping to have a proper breeding depends of the sun, like.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think people sometimes also forget that European winter takes very long and it's also very subtle, and our
Mm-hmm.
summer is too short and too high. And a lot of those Chinese animals have like high temperature
Very hard.
summer, winter, and then
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
like this again. Yeah.
very, very drastic changes.
Okay, not such a long and moist like autumn
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
spring as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Interesting topic, the crocs. To me, crocodiles, they seem to be like the most male type of reptiles that you can think of. And you're obviously a female. So how does that feel like working with crocodiles as a woman, being part of the reptile community, as a female? What's your experience about that?
So I will just talk about reptiles because clockwise, actually, there's actually many girls.
Really?
Like, yeah, like
Oh, I didn't expect that.
Croc Network is almost 50-50. And that's
Man.
how it is. That's why crocs are cool. Parity.
Ah!
Um, yeah, but like reptile webs, especially snakes, that's actually the worst part.
All
Oh, here
right.
we go.
Oh, I had crazy situations yeah, like especially like yeah, regarding snakes. That's like the ugh, I had too many things, too many experience to
Online or
mention.
offline experiences?
Both. Like in reality, many times um as a zookeeper, but also like just in the hobby. Um, like when you need to catch and you're like, ah, nah, I do it, and you're like, oh, like I'm doing this for fucking like like I've caught
Let me
more
take care of you,
anacondas than you
Sarah. It's
did.
dangerous.
Yeah. Um, that was that was more in the snake private keeping thing, but I think it was also more at the beginning of my career.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know why. Maybe like the kind of person I was and the place I've been was more into this kind of people. Like now I'm not meeting any. Well, also if I was, I would be just like shut up, like you know. But yeah, like there was many funny things. One
So,
day, I I can tell one story that was pretty fun. So I was a zookeeper for like maybe 2 or 3 years, and before working with crocs, I was really working with big snakes like rechiks and berms and like big snakes. And I was volunteering in a reptile shelter. Sorry for the microphone. Is that better?
It's great.
I was volunteering in an animal shelter, and it was the day to chip, chip a big berm, but like a big one. So I know myself. I know I'm used to them, but I also know I'm very short. Like I know my physical abilities, and I'm not totally delusional about that. So like I was like, yeah, okay, we do it together. And like this one massive guy that is a volunteer in this place but has never done anything else. So he knows this place, but he has no perspective about other things, and he hasn't learned to do things like properly. Because I wouldn't say you learn something if you've done it only one way. Like you need to see many different stuff to consider and then make it your own. But he comes and he just kind of like pushes me, and I feel the showing off energy, like and the guy just comes. The berm was so calm, like we could have just done it in the terrarium, like it was so chill. All of his body language was like, guys, do whatever you want with me, like I'm fine. And the guy comes, opens the thing, it just violently grabs his head. It was almost like crushing his skull.
What the fuck?
And of course, the berm was like 4 meters, so he was panicking and starting, like all of his body was trying to constrict and hold on something. So I had to grab the rest of the body. And then this dickhead just released the face.
Oh,
Like
what the hell?
he pissed him off, and then he releases the head and puts me in danger. And like I looked at him and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like you want to do this because you want to impress me, because I'm probably the first female reptile keeper you've seen in your life. And I'm sorry about this, but
I have to say he made a good impression on you because you're still talking about him today.
yeah. So this kind of small situation, that was the like really worst one, because like he put me in danger. And I really didn't like it. Like, yeah, it was pretty bad. But all of these small things, like lots of many things like this, happens very often.
So I just did a little bit of research on ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT about an estimation about the gender distribution in the reptile hobby, and it says based on. Oh, well, first of all, what do you think? What's the gender distribution in the? I asked for the reptile hobby.
30-50?
30-50 and 20% diverse.
The what?
30 to 50.
No, I mean like 30% female, 50% male.
Yeah, and the other 20%?
Don't go mathematics,
Oh
man.
my God,
Just
I'm
give
so
the
bad.
answer.
It means, oh,
You're such a dickhead. I think it's 40-60. I think
okay.
it's 40
oh
female,
God,
60
yeah.
male.
Sorry, Sarah, I didn't want to put you on the spot. Yeah, so ChatGPT says based on observations and anecdotal reports from reptile expos, forums, and hobbyist communities, estimated gender ratio is 70% male and 30% female.
Oh, that
And
was good.
as the reptile hobby is pretty involving, no, how do you say involving? Yeah, so a lot of people who are in the hobby are in it like full on, spend kind of their life in it. I mean that must also show like on the social media. So I'm wondering if there's a lot of people reaching out to you who want to get to know you, as you're one of the few females in the hobby.
Not anymore, because I'm not active on social media. And if I am, it's on my professional stuff, and I'm not on the public ball python groups, like those kind of stuff. And like I'm not showing my face all the time. Like I don't get to communicate a lot. So no, not anymore. But I did have a period where it was almost on a daily basis.
Man, that's crazy.
But that's more on the hobby part.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because like when it tends to turn professional, you have hobbyists trying to flirt, but most of the time it's not like zookeeping part or conservation research.
Also, when I look at like the animal education in general, 80% is female.
Really?
Yeah, like like this week, we had our first classes, and most classes are like 32 students, and 3 to 4, 3 to 5 are male.
Yeah.
And if I look at zookeepers, I almost know more female zookeepers than male zookeepers. So I think that's more the hobby and just general life part, and people don't know their boundaries or try whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe
like
that's my observation. Like, actually, I'm going to start a class about reptiles this Tuesday. That's for students who want to work with reptiles professionally. They have to get a vakbekwaamheid, we call it. It's like a sort of a license to exams connected to it. And 22 people signed up for this semester, and there are 3 guys.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that historically, like taking care of animals was like taking care of child, and that's why it was more a women like
okay.
job. I have no clue if that, but I know I had this conversation with someone.
Makes sense.
But like even in zookeepers, I know more guys like reptile zookeepers than girls. I do know many girls, but it's still majority of guys.
Can I be honest with you too? I knew before we were going to start this podcast that this question was going to come. And honestly, I was like, why does it need to be asked? To me, this is just another person in the professional field. But on the other hand, you have your own unique experiences that we don't have. So I was very like, I wasn't sure if this needed to be a question, honestly.
I'm going to tell you it needs to, because it has been useful for other women. I have been asked to talk about me as a zookeeper, as a female zookeeper, to encourage in other countries. I was in Pakistan to show that it was actually okay and doable, because there are some countries, well, not you, most of the time not Europe, that's why, but there are some countries where it is still hard to get in culturally or for whatever reason. But I know that it was way harder. So I have been asked a few times to talk, and they were like, yeah, but that's because also like because you're a good zookeeper, but because as a woman, like you can encourage other girls to do so.
Yeah,
But
and also
that's because like in Europe we don't face this kind of issues anymore.
Yeah, also looking back on our podcast history, I mean, you're the first woman out of how many guests did we have? Like 10 or something? Yeah, I mean, it clearly shows that there is not a perfect balance. So I just was curious. And also, I mean, it's just a question for the listeners as well.
Yeah, for sure. I don't say it was a bad question. I just really thought of that question, like, is that a valid question, yes or no? And does that need to be a topic? You know, that's simply what I wondered, but I can't answer that. That's why I just confessed to you my contemplation, you know? Yeah.
All right.
But it's also nice to hear. Yeah. Also, again, for my students, if they are listening, dear students, make use of it, please.
Sarah, is there any topic that you would still like to speak about, or do you feel like we should slowly but surely wrap it up with our final question?
I think it's all good for me. If you have any subjects left, go ahead.
There's always one thing that we like to speak about at the end of the podcast. This is obviously our podcast is called the European Herpetoculture Podcast. So we like to make the guest show us his perspective on the difference of like his specific niche of herpetoculture in the world. So, do you have any experiences about how crocodile care specifically is handled in Europe compared to crocodile care in the United States or in Asia or in Australia or whatever? How does that differ?
That's a tough question. So it is
Maybe, oh, sorry.
like it is different. Now, for Asia, for example, I haven't been looking in depth like of what is done. I will talk zoo wise because like for private keepers I have no clue, but South Asia is very good. Because like I guess they have more financial means and also very focused on conservation.
Okay.
I'm thinking about Mandai Wildlife Reserve in Singapore. That's doing a crazy job. Australia, I don't know. I haven't like been looking in any kind of croc husbandry there. But from so far from what I've seen, might seems a bit similar to the US. Now regarding the US, I am shared, but I think it's a big cultural gap that is making my mind like hesitating because of the sensationalism and because I think it affects how like the husbandry of the animals. Now, is it good, is it bad? I don't know, as I don't have enough perspective to have a proper opinion on this. So I don't want to say anything wrong. Now in Europe, I think it's very mixed. It depends. Like for the zoos, there's so many, like you have small private specialized zoos, like that are not technically considered zoos, that are doing an amazing job. Now I think, like I will talk about France. I think we are very far behind other countries regarding the habitats, like and the feeding. So I don't know what it's like in other countries, but like feeding is like we are overfeeding our animals, or we don't give them enough space. But obesity is a problem that is very, very like often, like it happens very, very often in France. It's very hard to find a reptile, not even just crocs, that is not fat. So yeah, like if we talk about herpetoculture and croc husbandry, I would just talk about the food problem. And also ethically, like the way of working with the crocs. So crocs are animals that we feel as a human point of view are not showing anything, but they actually show us much more than what we think. We just are not familiar with it, and our eyes are not taught to detect the details. And what I love to say about like enrichment, medical training, body language and reaction about crocs, but can be also the case for reptiles, is that we're always like, oh, they don't do anything, you know, like they sleep for like
25 hours in a day.
yeah, like they're like active 10 minutes, but those 10 minutes are worth 24 hours of activity. Like they are so important. Like it's very short, but it's like telling so many things. And that's what we don't pay attention to. No reaction is a reaction. That's what I like to say. And that always has to be taken in account. So I've been a bit everywhere, but yeah.
No, it's totally fine. Yeah, I mean, when you said like Southeast Asian or the Asian part of crocodile keeping is far ahead or is doing a great job, first I was a little bit surprised, to be honest, because I was not expecting that. But then as I thought a little bit about it, probably it also has to do with the fact that they can keep a lot of species like outdoors in natural climate.
Yeah.
I can imagine a random zoo in Indonesia can just dig a pond and put a fence around it, and the
Yeah.
enclosure will be better than everything we have here in Europe. So that must be a huge point, especially as it comes down to space for crocodiles.
There's a big reserve in India. So you're like, oh, India
Hmm.
zoo, I don't know, but it's actually so good. And they
Hmm.
do a huge, massive work of educating the people there. And when you see how the kids are like reacting to snakes and stuff now, it's just like so cool. Like they matter, you know, like they do something and that's materially, like you can see it, you know, you see the results, you see what's changing, like it's so good.
That's important. Education.
Yes.
Conservation starts with education. That's what I've learned today.
It's good, you're good, you remembered everything.
Very good. Perfect. Is there anything else to say?
I think that's all good.
What do you think, Stefan?
No, I'm happy with this one. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm definitely taking some things with me.
Thank you for having me.
Some one-liners I can reuse in classes. So, and it was really interesting again also to give the feedback on the questions. So thank you so much. It was a lot of
Thank
fun,
you.
and we'll definitely
Yes.
get back to you if I'm doing my trip to
Yes,
France.
yes, come. Yeah, you have to tell me. And also, I forgot to say, but it will be in Germany for the Croc Network.
Whoa, okay, where will it be taking place?
Berlin Zoo.
Man,
Where? Berlin Zoo?
maybe we should really go there.
You have to. We need to meet in
Real
person.
life.
Yeah. And
All right.
there's actually German croc keepers who are coming.
Nice.
Very fucking cool.
We actually already had a German croc keeper on. His podcast
Yes,
going to be
it's
online next week.
Robin.
Yeah,
Rob.
yeah, that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
So everybody who is interested in connecting with you or the Crocodile Association, please give us a quick info where we can find you, like online.
Well, my personal account, like my
Whatever you would like to share.
Yeah, it's Sarah Suchus. Otherwise, we have a website and an Instagram and a Facebook group. It's just called European Crocodile Networking Meeting, ECNM.
Love
All
it.
right, pretty
Yeah.
fucking perfect.
We'll make sure that everything is in the description also, so that people can just click the link, find
Perfect.
you all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. It was really nice.
Thank you so much
Good
for
first
being
podcast.
here, Sarah.
Yeah, you
All
did
right,
great.
let's go.
Thank you everybody for listening then. I hope you guys enjoyed this one too, and see you in the next one. Ciao.
Bye.